Welcome back, Canonites. Grimm has graced us with a new Canon Fodder, finally revealing the details of the upcoming Operation SPEARBREAKER mini-campaign. It's been a long time coming, and before diving in, this needs to be said, this should have been revealed before Awakening the Nightmare. Awakening the Nightmare is looking awesome, but for the sake of avoiding confusion, if nothing else, this should have been first, even if it was just a Canon Fodder or community update. Take note, 343. Anyway, let's dive into the details. Right off the bat, we learned that this 2-mission campaign, which will not have blurred cutscenes, just to be clear, will follow a squad of ODSTs called Command Squad Sunray 1-1, 1st Squad, 1st Platoon, Boomerang Company, 9th Shock Troops Battalion. Comprised of 5 ODSTs, who we'll talk about in a little bit, the squad will find itself facing off against a new enemy in the form of none other than Colony. Now, given what's revealed later in the article, it seems very unlikely that we'll see Commander Jerome or Morgan Quinsano in this mini-campaign. Still, Colony's in, so at least we got that going for us. And if you recall the Phoenix Log entry for Colony, it notes that they seem to have a focus on the Forerunner key ships stored on the Ark. While this is a stretch, and I mean stretch, and I hate to sound like a broken record here, we know that a fragment of Mendicant Bias lay dormant in the key ship known as the Dreadnought for millennia in high charity, and would often be guarded by hunters. I just can't help but connect these dots, though I remain skeptical as to whether or not they'll add up to anything. Moving forward though, the article features a brief interview with Kevin Grace, lead writer for Halo Wars 2, which gives us a look at the focus of Operation SPEARBREAKER, which is giving players a more boots-on-the-ground experience and, similar to Halo 3 ODST, experiencing things from the perspective of the average ODST. So it seems to mean that our commander won't be a Spartan or some off-screen presence. It also means each ODST in the squad will have their own voice, and that's actually pretty cool. I do hope that Commander Jerome and Quinsano can appear in some future campaign expansion. Awakening the Nightmare is very clearly banished focus, so it seems unlikely to see either of them there. But I am excited to get to know more about this ODST squad and see what Colony is up to. And speaking of the squad, let's get to know them. Leading Sunray 1-1 is Major Vaughn, known as the Mustang. Born to a family of politicians and corporate executives, Vaughn lived a life of privilege and luxury in the most prestigious of Earth's arcologies. But when a family squabble escalated, a rebellious young Vaughn made the worst and best decision of his life by enlisting in the Unsc Marines. Rammed through boot camp during the height of the insurrection, Vaughn had no time to regret his decision before shipping off to war against terrorists and separatist movements in the outer colonies. His first duty station as a green recruit was the Spirit of Fire, an old ship retasked with transporting UNSC military and police forces to colonies it once established. Few appreciated the irony more than Vaughn, given the role his own family played in exacerbating colonial tensions. Years later, he found himself on the Spirit of Fire again, this time as a commissioned ODST officer on a campaign against the Alien Covenant that would take him from half-glass colonies to ancient Forerunner shield worlds and beyond. It's been a long road, but Vaughn takes solace in the fact that this is definitely not the course his family had pre-charted for him. And right off the bat, a very interesting character. From riches to drop pods, Vaughn reminds me a bit of Marcus Phoenix from Gears of War, at least on the surface. Marcus's father Adam had hoped that Marcus would become a scientist and an officer like he had been, but Marcus decided against this, joining the COG as an enlisted man. Obviously the details after that are pretty different, but regardless. Up next is Warrant Officer Quinn, Signal Reconnaissance Specialist. Quinn has been many things in her life, but none have been as meaningful as service in the ranks of the Spirit of Fire's 9th Shock Troops Battalion. A highly trained signals intelligence analyst and electronic warfare operator, Quinn accompanies ODST pre-assault and deep strike post-assault teams on missions that require the application of technological wizardry in addition to raw firepower. With Professor Anders' departure on the Halo ring, it has fallen to Quinn and other UNSC personnel who have demonstrated affinity with and knowledge of Forerunner systems to be boots-on-the-ground resources for task force commanders. It's a job she relishes in. Quinn and Major Vaughn have a long history of service together on board Spirit of Fire. Quinn has no particular love for the ship itself and despises its recycled air and the peculiar pull of the barracks' artificial gravity, but she cares deeply for the crew and troops aboard it. The interesting thing that stood out to me is her being one of those taking on Anders' responsibilities following the professor's departure. It's something I am ashamed to say I hadn't really considered, but this answers that all-important question of what Spirit will do without the professor. Next up, we have Corpsman Gruss, UNSC Medic. Petty Officer Gruss is the Navy combat medic assigned to Major Vaughn's command squad. A woman of very few words, the ODSTs make it their mission to interpret Doc's opinion of their shenanigans by analyzing her body language, size, rude gestures, and grunts of disapproval. This friendly harassment ends when combat begins, for Doc holds the lives of the troopers in her able hands, wielding biofoam and trauma packs across the squad's position with incredible skill and delicacy. So perfect is her timing in dealing with injury that it borders on the prescient, and squad members resign themselves to the inevitable if Doc appears near them during battle. And after that we have Corporal Turpin, drone controller. Cursed with always being the right woman at the right place at the right time, Turpin wishes for nothing more than a life of glorious anonymity, rather than a career filled with fateful encounters. Turpin's recent assignment to the command squad has the rest of Boomerang Company nervous, as her reputation for dragging fellow Marines into perilous adventures is well known among the Spirit of Fire's crew and troops. As the squad prepares to deploy for a routine recon mission on the Ark's surface, Turpin crosses her fingers that nothing of interest or importance will transpire. Just this once. And here we can confirm that we have a female-dominated squad. Now, it's nothing all that special given Halo's records with female soldiers and squad leaders, but the majority of squads we've seen in the games have been male-dominant. It's a nice change of pace is what I'm saying, not to ignore what's come before. I don't think anyone will soon forget Mama Lopez. But anyway, our final member is Lance Corporal Sparks, the designated marksman. Sparks is the squad sniper and something of a wild card even among Spirit of Fire's impressively large cast of misfits and rogues. Sparks' long list of non-judicial punishments and reprimands would have landed him a full-time billet in the ship's brig were it not for two unique qualities: his unparalleled skill with an SRS-99 anti-materiel rifle, and supernatural ability to acquire the rarest and tastiest meal packs on the ship. Luckily, Helljumpers value good chow and a good shot more than adherence to the UNSC regulations, which keeps this Lance criminal from behind bars. So far. So we have an ODST sniper who is constantly reprimanded but remains in service despite that. Does that sound a little bit like Romeo from Alpha 9 to anyone else, or is that just me? But there we have Sunray 1-1. I'm looking forward to learning more about them, playing as / controlling them, and just getting my hands on Operation Spearbreaker in general. But in addition to banished forces, Sunray will have to deal with Forerunner security systems, including the new Controller Sentinel. The Controller Sentinel's primary function is to guard valuable Forerunner technologies on the Ark. Developed and deployed to counter the escalating threat from the UNSC and the Banished, these flying Sentinels are loosely tethered within set radii of important sites and will attack anyone that comes close or attempts to take control of the sector. An impenetrable energy shield protects the front of each Controller Sentinel, an improvement on the already powerful shields used by Enforcer Sentinels, whose function was to suppress flood outbreaks. Underneath it fires a continuous Sentinel beam to prevent enemies from hiding in its blind spot, but its primary weapon is a devastating supercharged Sentinel Pulse. So they're basically the Ark's equivalent of Enforcers, but a step up in some ways. I'm actually kind of sad that these aren't the Safeguard Sentinels whose beams we use in Halo 5, but I can't wait to see this enemy in action regardless. And releasing alongside this campaign DLC is an old favorite, the AI Serina herself. Like Forge, Johnson, and the Arbiter, Serina is still officially dead, her appearance in multiplayer entirely non-canon. Serina will of course have her own new units, these ones seeming to focus on ice-based abilities. Known units include the Frost Raven, basically a modified Nightingale with ice-based weapons, the Bison, a heavy-duty cryotech support vehicle and an upgrade of the traditional Bison still favored by the UNSC Army and Colonial Militia, and finally Cryo Troopers, basically Hellbringers but with ice beams. Insert your Hell Frozen Over joke here. Interestingly though, the Frost Raven is designated as the ZAV-48, the Z designator usually reserved for Forerunner weaponry. As the description for most of these units note, they use vacuum energy, which is basically the energy source most Forerunner installations and machines, including the Halo rings, use. Vacuum energy is pretty much what it sounds like, the background energy present throughout space in the vacuum. It's powerful stuff, and there is a lot of it. And also of interest, both the Frost Raven and Bison are noted as being concepts, so their appearance might not be entirely canon. I honestly kinda hope so, since this is some real next level shit, and I have a hard time believing that no one in the UNSC decided to look into vacuum energy. But that's it for now. We'll dive more into Serina's backstory and the technologies behind these new weapons and units in her leader profile. Though before we move on, I'm fairly willing to bet that the Cryo Bomb will return with Serina as well. Calling it now, folks. The next section gives us some visual teases for Phoenix logs that come in the next content drop. The first shows the destroyed Enduring Conviction, perhaps a review of recent events or the battle from another perspective. The second shows what looks to be an area of the Ark that Isabel glassed during the campaign being monitored by Sentinels. And the final image shows an extremely gorilla-like brute throwing a grunt over a cliff. I know the brutes are partially based on apes, but this seriously just looks like a silverback gorilla in armor. It even has 4 fingers rather than 3 like brutes normally have. Anyway though, the next section takes a look at Orda Val Saham, a Sankhili guard within the Banished. His logs are available in the Phoenix logs and provide some very interesting insight into the mindset of the Sankhili that serve Atriox. Check the full article to give them a read, and honestly if you haven't, read the Phoenix logs in total. They are some absolutely fantastic fiction, and if for some reason you don't or can't get them in Halo Wars 2, Halopedia has you covered. The Canon Fodder article comes to a close as we get a preview of an entirely new Covenant ship that will appear in Halo Warfleet. The ship depicted is called a Stormcutter by Kenneth Peters in the article, and he notes that we'll see a beautiful piece of artwork by Isaac Hannaford depicting the Sagon Blue, a UNSC Gladius-class corvette, facing off against twin Kigyar-helmed ships Mark of Prophecy and Divine Breath, which were engaged in piracy near New Carthage in 2554. Gods, as if I needed more of a reason to want this book. But that's going to wrap things up for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, this has been Halo Canon. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, and sharing it around. You are the reason I get to keep doing this, so thank you. Profusely thank you.